I never imagined myself as someone who would secretly record a family dinner, but desperation rewrites the rules of who you think you are. My name is Julia Wilson, though sometimes it feels like I'm borrowing that name, like it never fully belonged to me. I'm 34 years old, married to Daniel, a brilliant surgeon whose kind eyes still make my heart stutter after 7 years. But those same kind eyes would harden into silence every time his mother, Evelyn, walked into the room. From the start, Evelyn made it clear I didn't belong in the Wilson dynasty, with their inherited wealth and even older sense of entitlement. But nothing could have prepared me for the night. She lifted her crystal glass across her long mahogany table and said, "You'll never be a real Wilson. You're not real family." The room froze, her words cutting like glass, and I sat there, my heart pounding, my cheeks burning, trying to hold myself together. But what Evelyn didn't know was that my phone, tucked in my purse beneath the table, was recording every cruel word. Growing up in small-town Iowa, in a home held together by love and secondhand furniture, I learned that you earn your place in the world. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through nursing school, paid off every loan, and built a life piece by piece. Evelyn, with her silver spoons and social club connections, had no idea what it meant to fight for anything. As I sat there being dissected by her glare, I realized something that changed me. Family isn't defined by blood or last names. It's built with respect, loyalty, and love, and Evelyn had never offered me a drop of any. Daniel and I met 6 years ago at a medical conference in Boston. I was there representing our hospital's nursing team. He was presenting on new cardiac techniques. Our eyes met across a sea of lanyards and name tags, and by that evening, we were sipping hotel coffee like we'd known each other for lifetimes. It wasn't long before we were spending weekends driving between cities, falling asleep on calls, and talking about a shared future. 6 months later, I moved to be with him. But whenever the subject of his family came up, Daniel would grow distant. My mom's a little intense, he'd say, avoiding eye contact. When I finally met her, Evelyn was dressed like old money wrapped in pearls tailored, coiffed and cold. Her handshake was soft, but her eyes were sharp. "So, you're the nurse Daniel keeps mentioning," she said, dragging out nurse like it was a curiosity, not a calling. How refreshing to meet someone so ... practical. Throughout dinner, she interrogated me about my childhood, my parents, my education masking judgment as polite interest. Every answer I gave was met with a brittle, "How interesting," like my life had been scribbled in pencil while hers was etched in marble. She spoke of family traditions older than the country itself, and private schools as if they were birthrights. Daniel sat beside me, his hand on mine under the table, but his mouth remained closed. Over the next months, I tried. I really tried. I brought her gifts, read her favorite authors, offered help with her charity galas. I even memorized the names of her bridge club friends. She accepted every effort with icy civility, then found new ways to shut me out. The first time it felt undeniable was during the 4th of July photo shoot. I stepped into the frame for what I thought was a family picture, and Evelyn smiled with sugar-coated steel. "Oh, Julia, honey, this is just for the Wilson family Christmas card. You understand, don't you?" I watched Daniel walk into the frame without a word. Later, when I told him how much it hurt, he shrugged. "She's just traditional. It's always been blood relatives on that card." I laid in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was just one moment or a glimpse into the rest of my life. When we got engaged, her congratulations came wrapped in subtle sabotage. She immediately began dictating wedding menus, shooting down my ideas with, "The plaza has hosted Wilson weddings for generations." She added distant cousins and business associates to the guest list, then told me we had to limit my side due to space. I pushed back, and that's when she slid the prenup across the table. "It's not personal," she said. "It's just about protecting the Wilson legacy." You understand, coming from your background? Daniel took me aside, voice low. Just sign it. It doesn't mean anything between us. So I did. I told myself love was worth swallowing my pride. On our wedding day, Evelyn arrived in a dress just a shade too close to white. During her toast, she smiled that same sharp smile and said, "May Julia grow into the Wilson name and all the responsibilities it carries." The room clapped. I didn't, because I finally understood this wasn't love. It was word-dressed in etiquette. After we returned from our honeymoon, Evelyn handed us a check for the down payment on a house right down the street from hers. She called it a gift. But gifts from Evelyn always came gift-wrapped in control. Within a week, she had spare keys made without asking. She let herself in unannounced, rearranged my kitchen cabinets, critiqued my curtains, and commented on my furniture like it was garage sale debris. Wilson women have always kept their homes like this, she'd say, as if I was a squatter in a dynasty. One afternoon, I came home early from a shift and found her standing in her bedroom, going through my mail. "Just heading up," she said, holding open letters in her hand. That night, I told Daniel through tears, "She treats me like an intruder in my own home." He rubbed his temples, sighed, and promised to talk to her. That conversation either never happened or it did nothing, because Evelyn's presence became permanent like mold spreading quietly beneath the surface of our marriage. The more I tried to stand my ground, the more she pushed. The truth is, Evelyn didn't just run a household, she controlled an empire. Real estate in 3 states, stock portfolios, ownership in private medical firms. Her late husband had built a fortune, and when he died, she didn't just inherit it, she weaponized it. At a family reunion, I met Daniel's cousin Diane, who leaned in after too many glasses of wine and whispered, "Be careful. Cross Evelyn and you'll be cut off before you can say disinheritance." She told me about Daniel's older brother, who married someone Evelyn didn't approve of. He was removed from the family business, cut off from funds, and erased from holiday invitations. Another cousin had gone into nonprofit work, Evelyn called it undignified, and slowly iced her out. From then on, I watched Daniel more closely. He turned down a prestigious fellowship once, saying it would take him too far from home. But I knew what home really meant: his mother's orbit. He consulted her before every major purchase, every career decision. "It's complicated," he'd say, when I asked why he let her have so much say. "The family business has expectations. My father built all this for us to continue." That Christmas, Evelyn gave his brother a Rolex. His sister got a Hermes bag. A cousin received custom golf clubs. Me, a generic gift card to a department store. "I wasn't sure what someone like you would appreciate," she said. That night, I lay in a guest room that smelled like polished antiques and old grief, and whispered, "I don't think I'll ever belong here." Daniel pulled me close, said nothing. And in that silence, I started to believe her. Maybe I really didn't belong. Maybe I never would. 2 years into the marriage, we decided to start a family. When we told Evelyn over dinner, she set down her fork like it had personally offended her. "Are you sure you're ready for that responsibility, Daniel? Your career is just taking off." Then she turned to me, eyes narrowed. "And Julia, dear, motherhood is very demanding. Not quite like your nursing shifts." I ignored her. I had bigger things to focus on, like the positive test I held in shaking hands 3 months later, but my pregnancy was rough. Morning sickness so severe I was hospitalized, rising blood pressure, reduced work hours. And Evelyn, in all her maternal wisdom, began calling Daniel's siblings with fake concern. "I worry about Julia," she'd say. "She's struggling. Maybe she's not cut out for all this attention. People from certain backgrounds don't handle the spotlight well." Those comments circled back to me like poisoned arrows. When I was 5 months along, Evelyn decided she would throw the baby shower. She told me not to worry, that she had everything under control. It was held at her country club, filled with women twice my age who spoke about me like I wasn't standing next to them. The gifts were all monogrammed with the Wilson crest, nothing from the registry I'd carefully selected. Then she came to our home with decorators and began assembling a Victorian nursery set I had explicitly said I didn't want. "This crib has been in the Wilson family for generations," she said, brushing off my concerns about safety. "Wilson babies survived just fine without modern coddling." The next week, she called to announce she'd created a trust fund for her child. Daniel would be the sole trustee. "Financial sense runs in the Wilson bloodline," she explained. Then, at a family dinner, I overheard her whisper to her sister, "The baby will be a true Wilson, even if the mother isn't. Thankfully, Daniel's genes will win out." 7 months into my pregnancy, I was put on bed rest for preeclampsia. Evelyn started coming over daily, rearranging things, second-guessing my doctor, and treating my condition like it was theatrical. "In my day, women didn't make such a fuss," she said, as she unpacked the hospital bag I'd packed. One evening, after a terrifying spike in my blood pressure, she told Daniel, "Maybe Julia just isn't physically equipped for motherhood. I can help you find a proper nanny." That night, I broke. Cried so hard I could barely breathe. "She's trying to erase me before our baby's even born," I sobbed. Daniel helped me, said I was hormonal, said Evelyn meant well. But for the first time, I wondered if this marriage was survivable. Not for me, but for our daughter. Our daughter, Lily, was born after 26 exhausting hours of labor, a perfect little bundle with Daniel's dark hair and my green eyes. The moment they placed her on my chest, something primal awoke in me. Love, yes, but also a ferocious protectiveness I hadn't known I was capable of. For a few fleeting hours, it was just the three of us, wrapped in quiet, messy bliss. Then Evelyn arrived. She burst into the hospital room without knocking, her designer bag swinging like a weapon. "There's my granddaughter," she announced, reaching for Lily while I struggled through my first breastfeeding session. I gently told her we were in the middle of something important. Her smile didn't fade, but her voice cooled. "Wilson babies have always done well on formula. It's more practical, especially for women with careers." During my hospital stay, she showed up every day before visiting hours turned her way past the nurses. She referred to herself as the real mother figure, asking for updates on Lily's vitals as if I were some accidental vessel. To a young nurse, she said, "I raised 2 children, you know. My daughter-in-law is still learning, coming from her background." I told Daniel how uncomfortable it made me. "She's just excited," he said. "It's her first grandchild." Once we brought Lily home, things got worse. Evelyn let herself in constantly, using her key like an invitation. I'd wake up from naps to find her holding Lily, whispering to her in a tone that felt both loving and territorial. She swapped out the baby supplies I'd chosen for older, traditional ones she claimed were better. She questioned the room temperature, my swaddling, my feeding schedule. "Lily is lucky I'm here," she'd say, bouncing her in her arms like I didn't exist. At 6 weeks postpartum, I walked into her kitchen to find her showing off Lily to one of her society friends. "Here's my baby," she cooed. My stomach dropped. When I gently took Lily back, her friend asked if I'd be returning to work soon and who would be taking care of the baby. Before I could answer, Evelyn did. "I'll be taking over. Julia's very focused on her career, and I've adjusted my schedule for proper Wilson upbringing." I stood there, stunned, while she erased me from my own motherhood in front of a stranger. Then came the moment I knew I couldn't unsee. She asked to take Lily for a short grandmother visit. When she returned hours later, I noticed something glinting in the nursery light. Lily's ears, pierced, tiny gold studs in her soft little lobes. "All Wilson girls have their ears pierced as babies," Evelyn declared, completely unfazed. I was horrified. She'd permanently altered my child's body without even asking. I locked myself in the bedroom, called my mother sobbing. Daniel knocked, begging me to not overreact, but it wasn't overaction. It was the shattering of every remaining boundary. When I finally came out, I told Daniel clearly, "Your mother has crossed every line. Either you stand up to her, or Lily and I are leaving to stay with my parents until you figure it out." That ultimatum was the first time he didn't immediately defend her. He nodded slowly and said, "I'll talk to her." The confrontation took place over Sunday brunch at a neutral restaurant. I stayed home with Lily, pacing the living room, waiting for his return. 3 hours later, Daniel walked in looking drained. "She cried," he said, collapsing onto the couch. "She said she felt unappreciated, that she was just trying to help." He told me she promised to call before visiting, to respect her parenting. That new Evelyn lasted 2 weeks. Whenever Daniel was around, she played nice, bringing gifts, complimenting my parenting, even offering praise. But the moment he left, the mask fell. "You really should try harder now that you're a Wilson wife," she said, eyeing my messy bun. "Lily seems fussy. Are you sure you're doing things right?" One day, I came home from a grocery run to find her giving a tour of our house to an interior designer. "This space needs a proper Wilson touch," she said. "Robert agrees. It needs updating before Lily absorbs too much of this environment." A week later, over dinner at her home, she presented her next idea. "I've been thinking," she said, swirling wine in her glass. "You two should consider moving into the guest house on my property. It's practical, safe, and I'd be right there to help." Her smile made it clear. Help meant full control. To my horror, Daniel didn't shut it down. He asked about renovation costs. That night, I received a call that changed everything. A friend from the county courthouse whispered, "I shouldn't be telling you this." But Evelyn asked about grandparents' rights, specifically what happens if a parent is deemed unfit. My blood turned to ice. I told Daniel immediately. He went pale, called his mother on speaker, demanding to know what she was planning. Evelyn's voice dripped with false innocence. "I was just exploring options. Julia seems overwhelmed. I worry about Lily. As a grandmother, I have a duty." Daniel promised to talk to her again, but by the time the meeting happened, he had already softened. She texted him daily, sent gifts, and recruited family members to plead her case. That confrontation ended with him apologizing to her. "She's trying, Julia. We have to meet her halfway." I stared at him, heartbroken. I realized I was alone in this battle, alone in a house where my voice was shrinking, alone in a marriage where silence kept the peace and I was paying the price. The isolation began to rot me from the inside out. Evelyn had quietly pushed away the few friends I had in Daniel's social circle, too polite to resist her, too scared to stay close. My nursing colleagues had drifted during my maternity leave, and Daniel buried himself in work to avoid the growing tension at home. I found myself in a house full of luxury and emptiness, staring at a baby monitor and a security app, watching for Evelyn's car like it was a predator circling the gate. Every night, I'd rock Lily to sleep, wondering if I was losing my mind or just finally waking up. Then came Evelyn's 65th birthday. The party was a grand, glittering affair at her colonial mansion, with formal attire required, and the guest list curated like a political summit. I spent weeks searching for a dress that would cover my postpartum insecurities and meet Evelyn's unspoken standards. When we arrived, she greeted guests like a queen holding court, saving a tight-lipped air kiss for me. "Julia, you look comfortable," she said, eyes lingering on my body before turning to Lily. "And there's my perfect angel." The dinner table sparkled with inherited silver, set for 30 of her closest allies. Daniel sat near the head, next to his mother, with Lily in a high chair between them. I was seated near Evelyn's bridge partner and a cousin who didn't bother learning my name. Throughout the courses, the conversation danced around boarding schools, yachts, elite real estate. I nodded, smiled, swallowed my isolation with every overpriced bite. Then Evelyn turned the entire table's attention toward me. "So, Julia," she said loudly, "I hear you're thinking about going back to work." The chatter died down instantly. I cleared my throat. "Yes, I've been offered a flexible part-time position. It lets me stay sharp professionally and still be Lily's main caregiver." A few younger guests nodded with support. Evelyn didn't blink. "Well," she said, raising her glass, "I suppose some people need to work. Not everyone is fortunate enough to be born into security." She took a slow sip, eyes fixed on mine. "Though I wonder if divided attention is wise for a new mother. Wilson women have always prioritized family in those early years." My pulse pounded in my ears, but I didn't flinch. "Every family is different," I said calmly. "Daniel and I make choices together based on what works for our life." Evelyn's smile faltered. Something behind her eyes cracked. She set her glass down with precise grace. "Let's be honest, Julia. Daniel and Lily are Wilsons. They come from legacy, blood. You married into this family. That doesn't make you one of us." The words slammed into the silence like a hammer on glass. "You're an outsider who caught my son's attention," she continued, voice sharper now. "But in the end, blood is what matters." I turned to Daniel, willing him to say something, anything. He looked down at his plate, said nothing. Emboldened, Evelyn delivered the final blow. "I've finalized plans for Lily's trust. Daniel will manage it, of course, to protect the Wilson legacy. That way, what truly belongs to us stays with us." She might as well have slapped me in front of the entire room, and Daniel still said nothing. Years of nursing had trained me to remain calm in crisis, to hold composure even as my soul trembled. I stood up slowly, excused myself, and walked to the powder room, clutching my purse like a lifeline. Inside, I leaned against expensive wallpaper and took a slow breath. Then I reached into my bag and stopped the recording app on my phone. The entire dinner, every word, captured in perfect clarity. I splashed cold water on my face, reapplied my lipstick, and returned just long enough to whisper to Daniel, "I'm not feeling well. I'm taking a car home." He nodded absently, still orbiting his mother like a moon stuck in gravitational pull. In the back of the car, tears streamed silently down my cheeks. But beneath the pain, something else took root. Resolve. This would not be my daughter's inheritance. Something had to break, and it wasn't going to be me. Back at home, I curled up in bed, the recording burning a hole in my phone like a secret weapon. I played it again. And again. Each word, each pause, each silence from Daniel etched itself deeper into my bones. That night, Daniel stayed at his mother's to help clean up. He texted twice. Neither message mentioned me. The next afternoon, when he finally came home, I was calm. "I've scheduled a session with a therapist who specializes in toxic family dynamics," I said, meeting his eyes. "You should find someone too." He opened his mouth but stopped. He saw something in me, something he hadn't seen before. I wasn't asking, I was done asking. In the days that followed, I moved quietly but deliberately, opened a separate bank account, contacted a financial advisor, started tracking every violation Evelyn made date, time, what she said, what she did. I reached out to old friends, slowly rebuilt the circle I had met with her while trying to belong to a family that never wanted me. And in therapy, I faced myself, faced the way I had handed over my power little by little in exchange for scraps of approval. No more. One night, after Lily had fallen asleep, I sat across from Daniel at the kitchen table and placed my phone between us. "Listen," I pressed play. Evelyn's voice filled the room. Every word of that dinner, every cutting remark, every ounce of contempt. Daniel sat frozen, eyes wide, color draining from his face. When it ended, he whispered, "I had no idea it sounded that bad." "You were there," I said. "You heard every word. And you said nothing." Something shifted in his eyes. He couldn't argue. He didn't try. That conversation cracked open a long silent part of our marriage. Daniel admitted his fear of standing up to her, of losing the money, the legacy, the approval. "It's all I've ever known," he said, "but it's not worth losing you." I made my position clear. I wouldn't raise our daughter in a world where her mother was invisible. I wouldn't let Lily learn that love means silence, or that respect has to be earned through obedience. Daniel agreed to therapy. He called his older brother James for the first time in years. And what James told him changed everything. She isolates us, makes us compete. The moment you show independence, she pulls the plug on love and money. His sister Elizabeth shared the same. We've all lived in fear of her. Watching you two break away, it's giving me courage I didn't know I had. Together, Daniel and I created a plan. We'd set clear boundaries, real ones with consequences. Daniel would decline his role as executor of Evelyn's estate. He'd remove himself from any inheritance. We rehearsed the conversation with our therapists, with each other. When Evelyn arrived for the meeting, we were ready. No Lily to distract. No emotion to manipulate. Just the two of us. "Mother," Daniel began, "we need to talk about how things are going to change." She stiffened. He laid it out. No unannounced visits. No undermining parenting. No gifts with strings. No insults disguised as tradition. "And I'm stepping down from your estate," he added. "I don't want the inheritance. I don't want the control." Her face contorted. "This is her doing," she spat, pointing at me. "She's poisoned you. You're throwing everything away." "No," Daniel said quietly. "I'm finally choosing something real," she cried. Begged, threatened. Promised exile and disgrace, but we didn't move. When she finally stormed out, slamming the door behind her, we stood in our kitchen shaking, but free. Some relatives took her side. Others came forward with their own scars. The mask had cracked, and behind it was the same monster we had known. We sold the house she helped us buy, moved to a smaller home, one we could afford ourselves. We donated the furniture Evelyn picked, repainted every wall, reclaimed every inch. Daniel grew closer to James and Elizabeth. Lily met cousins she'd never seen, running through grass untouched by Evelyn's shadow. I returned to nursing part-time, rediscovering the woman I'd buried under silk table settings and silent dinners. It wasn't perfect. Some holidays were tense. Some phone calls still stung. But the difference was we were no longer afraid. Evelyn tried once more. Sent Lily an expensive gift with a note. "This is what real family gives." We returned it unopened. 3 months later, she asked for a visit, supervised, in a public park. She came, controlled herself, stayed polite, not out of love. But because the rules were now ours, she never apologized, but she complied. And that was enough. I watched Lily grow into herself, bold, tender, full of light. The kind of girl who wouldn't shrink to fit into someone else's legacy. Daniel found new purpose, teaching at a hospital instead of chasing titles. And at night on our porch, beneath our own stars, he'd take my hand and whisper, "You saved us." But I didn't. I simply stopped letting someone else define what we were worth, because family is not about inheritance or appearances. It's about choosing each other over and over, even when it's hard. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the name you married into and build something better with your own. So if you're out there questioning your place in someone else's story, this is your permission to rewrite the ending. Not for them, but for you. And for the little girl watching you become everything you were never allowed to be.